Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Norway Chess 2024, one of the strongest and most interesting chess tournaments that is going on this year, featuring Magnus, Hikaru, Nakamura, and other top superstar players. We have incredible storylines going left and right. We are in the second half of the tournament, and today's round featured Hikaru versus Magnus, part number 2. Part 1 earlier in the event finished with a draw, and Magnus winning in the Armageddon. Also, Liren returning to form after losing 4 games in a row. More on that later. Also, a friendly reminder, I'm currently in Spain on a travel setup. I packed a tripod that's way too big, but hopefully you like the video quality. I got incredibly sunburned, and to know why I'm in Spain, I will give you a friendly reminder. First, I'm here on a little vacation, then I'm going to Madrid, which is also vacation, but for that, for the Clash of Claims, that's Vladimir Kramnik versus Jose Martinez. We sold out. The event is sold out. So it's then open to the public in certain areas of the event. That's June 7th to 9th. If you're in Madrid, do come see it. And then I am playing a chess tournament myself. Links in the description. Also, behind-the-scenes content available on Patreon. I've been talking about the Patreon a lot. I just uploaded my first vlog. I've never done a vlog. So I vlog. I played some paddle today for the first time ever. Padel, incredible sport. Probably my new favorite sport. Better than tennis, better than squash, better than pickleball, which is not a real sport. Controversial take, but that's just the way it is. My friends, let's get into this recap. It's currently 11 o'clock at night here, and everybody's gone to sleep, but Mr. Gotham is working overtime. If you want to see my Grandmaster lessons, if you want to see more instructional content, you can check out the Patreon, and supporters of the Patreon and Grandmaster tier folks on the Patreon we'll get vlogs and all sorts of behind the scenes, including maybe a Kramnik interview. More on that later. Okay, my friends, it's Pragg versus Liren. Ding lost 4 games in a row. There is really no way to sugarcoat that. Liren has lost 4 chess games in a row, and he is looking to bounce back. He opens with e4, e5. Meanwhile, Pragg has had a great event. He beat the world number 1. He beat the world number 2. He plays an Italian. We have knight to f6, d3, main line. You can also play knight g5 here, going for the fried liver. Bishop c5, and a line occurs on the board, and I'm skipping through it because this was seen in several games in this event. And Liren played queen b8 against Fabiano Caruana. But there was actually a game earlier in this event which featured the move bishop to b6, which is a sideline. And what's interesting is Ding plays that move. So Ding had a game against Fabi, queen b8, and then Fabi played in a way where it was quite rare. Like, he played a certain move order where he put a rook on e2 very early, and he like put a pawn on a4. And it was just super rare stuff, if I'm not mistaken. And he very quickly prepared the move pawn to d4, which sent the game into a very unique territory. But there was bishop b6 as well. In this game, we have bishop to b6. And then we have a4, and a similar concept as in the game that Fabiano played against Ding, which is knight d7 followed by this move f5. See, in that game, Ding also played knight d7, but because this trade had already occurred, so the position looked like this, you know, black was trying to play knight d7 and push for some sort of d5. And so in this game, we have a similar position minus the exchange on the c6 square. And as you can tell from Pragg spending a lot of time in this position, he didn't particularly like the inclusion, or rather the absence, of queen to b8. And so he doesn't take on c6. And that gives the game completely unique character. So he doesn't take on c6. And because he doesn't take on c6, he tries to instead play for the center, and he takes on b6. And Ding gets a position where he has a very powerful center. And the 2 top engine moves here for white are rook f1 and bishop to e2. Now, Pragg plays one of the others, which is queen h5. Then he plays b3, playing very patiently, undevelops the bishop. But he chooses the wrong plan here. He chooses bishop to a3, which simply allows Ding to unpin himself with like rook f7. Ding goes here, and okay, the position is still kind of very much in the balance, but white is really struggling to move these two pieces. The computer likes the position because it puts a very high value and emphasis on the bishop pair. It thinks white is very happy here. But the moves for white to get an advantage are queen to h4 attacking the knight, knight to g4, which I don't know what that does, and then something like, rerouting the knight, maybe playing f2 to f4 because the rook can't, take the pawn. Now, Pragg doesn't find the best approach, plays queen d1, and that's a bad move because Ding is just better now. Ding plays knight f6, he trades the knights, he plays rook f7, and after Pragg goes here, this is just a fundamental loss of time because you block your own bishop. Like, Pragg's idea was clearly to make some trades and open the position, but Ding completely takes over the game with knight to f5. And whatever Pragg thought he was doing here, Ding has a much more powerful thing going on. And as you see from the evaluation of the computer, black is just much better. Not only is black better, black is up 30 minutes on the clock. So Ding completely changes everything this game. I mean, completely makes a comeback to his old form and begins to take over. Bishop b4 puts the queen back, and Pragg plays h4 and is just lost. He's just lost after h4. The move h5 here is very powerful. White has to hang on to the pawn. Well, I mean, if white goes queen d1, obviously, that makes sense. But even moves like queen f4 first to try to load up an attack on the f2 pawn are very powerful. So h5 is a very good move. And after queen g5, first of all, Ding can just play like b6 and even prepare moves like c5, just b6, stopping a5, and then bring the knight over. But even a move like rook e8, it's very difficult for white to make a move here. Like, if white plays just a lazy move like a5, e3 just goes straight down the middle, just winning the game. Like, how does it win the game? Rook e4, rook g4, the queen is trapped. So it's a very, very, very bad position. h5, rook e8, e3, go for the kill. Ding is back. Okay, Ding doesn't play h5, he plays rook f6. And now, again, a move like, bishop h5, rook e8, just completely taking over, just marching these pawns in. Instead, what happens here is Ding has had a crazy tournament, and obviously a lot of people have talked on social media about his mental health and sending him best wishes, and clearly he's not in good form. And in this position, Ding goes here and plays bishop e6 and offers a draw. And it's important. It's important when he offered this draw, he just played his 30th move. The rule of the tournament is you can repeat a position, you can repeat moves and make a draw, but the earliest you can offer a draw is after both players played 30 moves. Ding played bishop to e6, losing his entire advantage that he had built up here, and his 30-plus minute time advantage on the clock, 35 minutes. And, I mean, the point is he just wanted to stop the bleeding, and it is a strategy. The point is, like, he could have been winning, he could have went on to lose the game. He stops the bleeding, he gets on the board, right? He doesn't lose another game, he makes a draw. But it's just so wild because Ding from, and they got to play again, Ding from several years ago, I mean, he would have gone bishop h5, rook e8, and he would have won this game in 10 to 15 moves. And we can only hope that Ding Liren returns for the World Chess Championship match. However, Ding gets to play another game with black, right? So remember, draw odds. We get a Trumpowski, by the way. Very exciting. This line with bishop f6, gf6. So Ding plays a very principled line. Pragg just plays a very simple game. No bishops, plays knight e2, castles, knight d2, and just has a very stable, solid position. And again, this is actually a perfect weapon for Armageddon because you have a 3-minute time advantage and you can very quickly play some moves, play moves like c4. So c3, very solid, king h8. Ding does everything right, completely puts all his pawns on light squares because he traded off his light squared bishop. So very, very nice positional game. And then he plays knight f6, queen e7, just rock solid. And before you know it, I mean, Ding is just at least not worse. Pragg plays knight g5 going for a tactic. Here, Ding can just immediately start sniping the g file, and he's just winning because he has like rook g6, for example. He doesn't like something here. Instead, he plays rook d8. Okay, completely fine. And now he plays rook j8, and he's just completely winning. So Pragg played the move c4 some moves ago, right? but Ding just took it. And Pragg has a way here to equalize. He has a way to, you know, play knight c6, rook d6, and if you take, it's perpetual check. It's just a draw. But no. He goes for this. He can't make a draw. It's Armageddon, and he is completely lost. Queen h4. Now Ding can even do nothing. He can just wait, but bishop b4 is lights out. The point is that if white plays knight takes f5 in this position, you just play rook d2. You don't care about losing your queen because rook d1 is check, and then you take the knight. And then in this position, Ding goes rook g8. And knight df3, and he is completely lost. One move. Rook g8. He probably was expecting f4. This casual knight retreat loses him the game. Why? The bishop is hanging. You can't move the bishop because d7 is hanging. You cannot take on d7 because this is checkmate. You cannot protect your pieces because knight f7, discovered attack, and then you lose. Knight df3, he plays h6, rook d6, and he resigns. He got on the board. Okay, he did score a point for making it to an Armageddon. And honestly, that may have been the best thing. And it's a very, you know, it's a very delicate situation. And I don't believe all these, you know, theories from YouTube commenters like he's doing this on purpose to, you know, put pressure on Gukesh and show Gukesh that he's out of form or something. This is, yeah, it's not great. This is like some sort of hydration. I don't know. I don't even know what it is. I drank like a blue drink. Drank like a blue electrolyte drink earlier when I was playing paddle. I thought this was just water. I was like, I don't know why water is canned. So Ding gets on the board, but unfortunately he loses his game. And a Muzychuk versus Wenjun was a Petrov, which is as much as you need to know about this game. Their classical game. It was a mainline Petrov. Actually, Alireza and Magnus had a very similar game. But in their game, instead of queen to e7, Alireza played knight e8, and that allowed Magnus the added option to play like d5, and he and that's the position they got. In this game, however, there was just a queen trade, and in positions like this, white tries to take advantage of the space that they have to put a little bit of pressure on black. So they try to exploit a little bit of the space advantage. It's all very meta stuff. That's why the computer thinks it's like plus 0.2. But Wenjun did a nice job taking some space back, putting her knight in the center. And I'm only fast forwarding this game because it's just a relatively straightforward Berlin game where white really didn't get a whole lot. And then this is a dead draw. So I'm not trying to take anything away from the players, but as far as the pay grade of the average chess fan, you know, this position is a little bit too much. Now, to her credit, Wenjun did put as much pressure as she could, but with the, you know, complete equality in the endgame, you know, it looks like black is about to break through, but she's not. White is defending everything. It is really hard to lose in the Berlin, and black literally just trades and creates an impregnable structure here, opposite colored bishop endgame, and the players make a draw. And sometimes it happens, you know? So Wenjun and Anna go to also an Armageddon. This time Anna's like, all right, if she's going to play the Berlin, I'm not going to touch that. Knight c3 is a very big sideline in the Italian. Nowadays we are seeing people play, you know, c3 and stuff, but now it's just a very kind of straightforward Italian. Knight d2, very provocative move. Bishop e3, d5, very principled, fighting back in the center. A trade, and now white castles. This is a great game. This is a great way to play the Armageddon because you get like a very nice queen attack. You're going to get your rooks on the f-file. But of course, the position is equal. And Wenjun once again just trying to suck the life out of position, you know, goes for the queen trade, and Anna's like, I don't know what to do, so I guess we have to go for the queen trade, and, you know, you're just going to play f6 here. And, you know, black's strategy is not to lose the game. And that's like, you know, winning in the Armageddon is not losing. And so Anna now has to win this position, and this position is basically unwinnable. I mean, black is active, a lot of pressure, just basically sitting there saying, like, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? Now, I do like white structure, but black immediately takes the open file, very instructive, and actually begins calling the shots herself. So in this matchup today, Wenjun was completely flawless. Like, she completely defended the game with black. I mean, basically effortlessly. Maybe there was some drama here late as the players got into some time scramble, but Wenjun played a fantastic matchup where she was never in any danger at all, like at all, as far as I remember. And I believe I tuned out here. I started watching. Oh, there was some moment here. White could have sacrificed her pawn with 10 seconds on the clock and tried to walk in the king, but I mean, of course, in low time you always get this drama. But and then in this position, Anna just beat her on time. So that's the nature of the Armageddon. I think Wenjun was worried about knight f5, rightfully so. And she couldn't come up with a move in time. And yeah, I mean, the best move was just going back. And I mean, you know, you can't, this pawn can't be taken because of fork. And maybe she got scared. Maybe she saw, like, I don't know, c5, knight f5, and she thought, oh, rook a5, you know, but it's a draw. But instead of that, she straight up flagged. So she lost the Armageddon after basically playing a day of perfect chess. Like, she was unbeatable, and she gets beaten on the clock. And that's Armageddon for you. Now, Humpy Koneru versus Vaishali. Vaishali has been having a great tournament, but she did just lose to Wenjun, as one does. Unless you're Anna Muzychuk. And these two just played at the candidates. And Vaishali, for a third time in this event, goes for the Grunfeld. Which, again, the Grunfeld survived the test of time for many, many decades. But in recent times, in recent games, people with the black pieces are playing the traditional queen's pawn setups. The queen's gambit declines. That's the meta. That's sort of where theory is trending. That is where black takes minimal risk. Vaishali is not into taking minimal risk, and she plays a gambit. I have never seen this opening in my life, ever. And I guess it's too dangerous to give black all this development. I don't know. Maybe, I have no idea. I've never seen c6 ever. And Humpy was like, we're not getting involved in that. She's gonna take, and we're gonna play a completely symmetrical position. And I'm going to try to use the element of, you know, being able to go first to my advantage. Vaishali plays knight e4, looking to make some trades. And this is the way black tries to equalize the position, because at the end of the day, that is what black is after in chess. And the game is very equal. And here, you know, queen b6 is kind of an equal move, and queen a5 is maybe even black trying to play for an edge. Queen a4. Now, Humpy here takes a pawn, and I think, you know, judging from Vaishali's time spend of 32 minutes, I don't think she was thinking about dinner. I think she was thinking bishop e4, rook d4, right, which is a fork. And now white has to play rook c4, defending everything. And I think Vaishali was basically saying, I can lose my pawn and I can still, you know, catch up to my opponent here by trading the rooks, bringing this rook. Now, if the queen goes back to a4 where it was, I can take the bishop, and then I'm going to take on b2. So all the way back here, Vaishali worked out that if I'm going to play rook d8, we're going to get takes, fork, rook c4, we're going to trade, attack the queen. It's got to move but protect the bishop. Now I'm going to trade, and now I'm going to take b2. I'm going to be fine. And I think she spent 30 minutes getting to this position in her head, but somehow it's like very annoying for white. And I mean, white continues to put pressure, and the first move out of that position, she spends another 25 minutes, which is kind of how you know that something went wrong, right? That's just, I mean, it just makes sense. Like, you spend all that time and something still goes wrong. And you're like, what happened? Right? So a5, and now white is just pressuring. Rook c4 is a very nice counter deflection, but suddenly Vaishali just finds herself in a totally losing position. Queen d8 check, king g7, rook e7, and she's only down a pawn, but her king is insanely weak. The black queen has to move. Queen d7 was not even necessarily the best, but between the weaknesses of the king and the weaknesses of the pawns, white is just totally winning. And Humpy now begins the conversion process. Again, Engine really preferred like something like h4 and also wanted the queen on e8. Vaishali now creates some crazy counterplay here, queen a2, but queen d4 is winning. Here she had to play king h6. I mean, I can't even begin to explain this move. Maybe you just avoid any endgame where you're losing and you avoid any checks. You just toss the f7 pawn. Maybe if I even put this on the board, it's lost. Maybe not, because rook f7, there's this. And there's checkmate in 2. So, yeah, king h6 is what Vaishali had to find. She goes here, and unfortunately, now she is going to lose all the pawns. Queen f8, rook f5. Very, very nice idea, sacrificing the rook. It's called a clearance sacrifice for the pawn, gf. f4 is not mate because of king g6, queen g7. Rook f5 would have been a clearance sacrifice if f4. But I completely forgot that when the pawn takes, the king is free. I mean, that's what happens when you make recaps at midnight. Most of my recaps are being made at home at 4 or 5 p.m., which is when I'm sleepy but sharp. Here I'm neither. And luckily, I will not be playing my games in Spain at midnight. So Vaishali unfortunately suffers 2 losses in a row. Humpy gets another win. And Vaishali's just been very unpredictable. Like, her score is crazy. I mean, she wins so many games. She loses games. Like, her games are bananas, back and forth. Another game that was completely nuts was this game between Fabiano Caruana and Alireza Firouzja. This one, an Italian, and knight bd2. Fabiano has been experimenting with this early knight bd2. He did it also earlier in the event against Ding. He played an early knight bd2, but it became a normal game. Alireza plays d6. The truth is, like, it's very difficult for white to get away from playing all of the generic improving moves in the Italian. So he plays c3, and then here he plays knight f1. So he doesn't play h3, he plays knight f1. And then he plays knight g3 and bishop g5. So he basically never plays a4, he never plays h3. The best move here for black, again, maybe not according to super high depth, is to basically snag this bishop. It's to play knight a5. It's a very common idea in the Italian. Clearly Fabiano had something prepared here. He was just ready to give the bishop up, maybe take with a pawn, maybe take with a queen, but it's very interesting. Like, why would he give up the bishop? Like, for basically no reason. I think it was to start an attack, like maybe knight a5, knight h5. I mean, I have no idea. I've not analyzed this position whatsoever. But maybe not, because actually, maybe, I don't know. The engine is considering many things. Bishop f2, maybe king e2. Maybe this was Fabi's prep. Yeah, wow, the engine likes this. You couldn't take because knight e4. Incredible. Bishop here, maybe this. Oh my god, the computer's really liking white's position. Did I just accidentally discover Fabiano's prep? Crazy. Like, look at this huge attack you get. I mean, okay, whatever. Anyway, Alireza didn't do any of that. He played h6, g6. He played h6, g6, and he basically waved the bull on, which is bananas. Fabiano played a4, which is not a move that, you know, fits the style of the position, but I think he was trying to stop b5, knight a5. I think he decided, okay, I'm not gonna, I'm gonna keep my bishop, and then he castles g5 and he sacked the knight. And he basically was like, I'm gonna go king h1, maybe d4, maybe f4, like that's how I'm gonna play this position. Now, these positions are always very difficult to play because black just defends himself, and Fabi here spent a long time. And he's like, I gotta move my h-pawn, what do I do? And he chose wrong, and now he's losing. And he actually knew. He went to the confession booth during the game, and he said, I should have went h4. That's what I should have done. He plays h3, and now queen g8, queen f3. Black is winning if he finds knight h7. This computer actually needs a moment to rethink. Yeah, you see? Yeah. And the king runs away to f8. This is what you need to go back, then put the king on f8 and slowly unravel your position. Instead, Alireza does it like this, and that's a little bit worse. But still, he gets the king to f8, and he's still doing very well. But the pawn needed to stay on h4, and some of you may be wondering why. Why does the pawn need to stay on h4? What's the difference? Still queen g8. The difference is that after something like queen f3, knight h7, the bishop is never hanging. So knight h5, king f8, bishop h6, king e7, you can get the bishop to g7. Like that's the major difference. Whereas in the game, h3, queen g8, queen f3, like knight h7, you don't get the same knight h5 because after here, there's some really ridiculous detail like bishop at knight g5. You need to control the square here. Otherwise, there is counterplay. If the pawn is on h4, there is no knight g5. Like that's the difference. And Fabi doesn't find that key difference, even though he felt like he found the difference. And he's worse. Alireza doesn't find the best way forward, and suddenly here comes insane counterplay down the f file. Look at this. And I mean, he's just up a knight, but it's for 2 pawns, and he plays bishop g4, giving back the material. Rook f2, knight h5, we have a trade. Suddenly Fabiano's gonna butcher open the f-file. Queen g3, he's ready to take on e5, and Alireza says, you know what, I'm good. No more attack. Let's trade some pieces. Bishop f7, Fabiano gets the 3rd pawn for the knight, and now the position is just back to equal. It was very sharp for a moment, but it looked like Alireza was just gonna beat Fabiano with the black pieces maybe, but the players ultimately get to this position, shuffle the pieces, and make a draw. They both decide they had enough. Nobody wanted to risk anything. I might say very different than the draw in the Pragg Ding, right? Because here, Ding could have just called the shots indefinitely. There, they kind of were both burnt out. So we go to Armageddon, of course, yeah? So we have an Italian, a very similar Italian, but this time the knight did not go to f1. So the knight did not go to f1, the bishop did not go to g5, a3, h3, completely different game, maneuvering game, c4, controlling the ability to go to d5, a trade, knight f5, queen e2, and Alireza builds up a very nice position. And remember, he completely swindled Fabiano in the previous Armageddon. He pushes the knight back, and now he just begins trading pieces, right? Because again, it's Armageddon. White has to beat black. So at some point, Fabi's going to have to take some massive risk, or Alireza is going to make a blunder. I mean, okay, they're just rotating their pieces. c5, he continues to have a 2-minute time advantage. And queen a8 was not the best, but it is a move. And I mean, Fabi just can't get moving. He can't do anything. Black completely dominates the game. Now Alireza starts trying to take over the game. And now he's just winning. And rook d3, all the pawns are gone. And this is game over. He is simply up too many pawns. Trades the pieces. It was not the best way to convert it. He also makes it completely unnecessarily exciting here, but his e-pawn is simply too strong, and that's it. This is, you know, Fabiano tries and tries and tries and tries and even equalizes, but Alireza was more interested in making a draw, and he will get his draw, and he wins. He beats Fabiano. So he beats Fabiano twice in Armageddon in this tournament, which is very nice. Very nice for him. Friendly reminder that I'm posting stuff like vlogs and behind the scenes on the Patreon. Listen, y'all, there's nobody sponsoring today's video. You know, I gotta tell y'all. Got like 400 members on there. It's pretty incredible. D4. Exchange Slav. Okay. Next game. No, just kidding. Exchange Slav is kind of what you play when you want a simple, straightforward positional game. As we see here, there is like no imbalance in the position except where White's light squared bishop is, and White puts some pressure on the c-file in this game, Pia versus Lei Tingjie. Black's light squared bishop is quite bad compared to White's light squared bishop, but the advantage is very microscopic. White has to do something. I almost feel like in a lot of Pia's games, she has this really, really, really pleasant position, but it's almost like too peaceful. I mean, I really like her playing style. I wish I had positions half as good as she does in her games, but sometimes it's like almost a little too solid. Like, look at Black's position here. I mean, Black has no weaknesses, right? And I think Pia was just sort of going for this slow maneuvering game, and then, you know, Lei Tingjie forces her into committing some sort of decision, and now the board explodes. Lei trades the rooks and puts this blockade, and I mean, Lei just does a very nice job maneuvering this game. Pieces fall off, bishop takes, knight takes, and Lei simplifies, and she's not going to lose this game. And this is just a draw. If anybody's better, it's Black because of White's weak d-pawn, but nobody's better. Bishop endgame, and very peaceful, actually, in the classical today, in the women's, except in the game of Humpy. But as always, now we have an Armageddon, yeah? And Armageddon has not been great. This time, by the way, Pia plays, she avoids the exchange Slav because, I mean, it's just a little bit too solid. A4, we have a mainline Slav. This is a very, very, very classical line. Black plays knight d7, White goes knight h4 to try to get the bishop. But again, Pia gets these extremely, extremely solid positions, but sometimes they're a little hard to do something with, you know? And I would go nuts trying to play these positions with White. But you know, very strong positional players play them. But Lei is like one of the worst opponents to get tangled in kind of a fight with because she's very good tactically. And she just takes the pawn on d5. She's just winning a pawn. D4, and Armageddon has not been great to Pia. Yeah, Lei is just 2 pawns up, and she simplifies. And I don't think there is any more drama in this game. But these games go very long because, of course, you cannot just resign in the Armageddon. Queen a1, Queen e5, and Lei picks up the 1.5 points in the Armageddon match. Now we go to our main event. We go to our main event of the evening. Hikaru Nakamura versus some Norwegian guy. They drew earlier in the event. Hikaru had Black. He had a nice convincing advantage from the opening. And this time he plays, again, some sort of preparation. This move, f3. The Kmoch variation. And the idea is just to play e4. I mean, that's sort of the point. He actually played this move against Magnus in a very famous game that they played where I think Hikaru called it like one of his most painful loss, which is it was a very iconic game. I do believe that was the game Zurich 2014. It was a F3 Nimso. Hikaru was about to be his first classical win against Magnus, and Magnus at the last second not only held the game, I think he won the game. So I don't know if this was sort of a throwback to that, or or it was Hikaru's candidates prep. But from the opening, Magnus played the most confrontational way, which is to take the knight and then put two pawns like this. Knight d5. And here there is, like, if black plays e d5, white plays e3, e3, bishop d3, knight e2, and just tries to, like, advance these pawns. Knight d5 is definitely a move. Queen a5, now white plays this move e4. Taking the pawn is bad, because actually white just blocks in many lines and then actually runs the king to safety and has an advantage. Magnus plays knight e7. The bishop protects the pawn. Queen c3, the king will just move. Queen d2. And from the opening, Hikaru was up a lot on the clock, but this is one of those positions where that doesn't actually matter at all. And he put the knight here, knight d3, queen c7. And this is just a forced draw. Queen b5, bishop here, queen b2, bishop here. And they repeat the position. This has been played before. And this game ends in a draw in 17 moves. The boys just completely robbed me of content. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the approach was here, but I think the approach was, let's go to Armageddon and let's have fun. Last time Hikaru went to Armageddon, he ended up, I thought I just saw like a gecko, because that's sometimes what you get here. But this time, Hikaru has the white pieces, he doesn't have the black pieces, and Hikaru dared Magnus actually to repeat the Nimso. He actually wanted to probably play something in the Armageddon that was going to be different, but this time Magnus just plays a Queen's Gambit declined. We have c, d, e, d, bishop g5, bishop e7, and now Hikaru plays f3. This is a very provocative approach from Magnus, bishop to g4. You kind of want white to do something, so he baits Hikaru into playing this move f3. And Hikaru is always down for a fight with Magnus. These guys really love going back and forth. They bring their rooks to the center. And here comes knight to f4, releasing a little bit of defense on this square. Pawn takes d4. And now you cannot just take pawn takes d4 here, because actually black has a very powerful tactic on this diagonal, sort of hidden. Knight d4 defends the bishop, and bishop c5 would pin whatever takes on d4. So we have knight e6, f e6, and pawn takes d4. Now some of you may be wondering, Gotham, can't black go here? Absolutely. He absolutely can go there. But as it turns out, this is all Hikaru's prep, because he hasn't spent any time. So Hikaru gets all of this on the board. He remembers this from somewhere. And bishop g6, rook f8, and now this move bishop f2. And somehow black's position is under massive pressure, and Hikaru is just much better. Not only is he up 5 minutes in an Armageddon game, which is completely absurd, he's also just got a better position. So the knight goes back to c6, rook e6, Magnus creates counterplay, and dips below 3 minutes. 8:26 versus 3:15, and a worse position. Now the best move here is rook c1, but a very close second is knight to f4, just transferring the knight over there. Knight to d5, and Magnus is losing. Queen b3. Hikaru is 4 minutes up with a completely winning position against Magnus Carlsen. Can you believe it? Magnus takes on f4, and loses his queen. I mean, he was always going to lose his queen, but now he's like just straight up losing his queen. There's nothing he can do about it. He just has to play this position. Queen b7, the black position is completely falling apart. He has 2.5 minutes as well. The knight goes to e5. The bishop comes back to e4. I mean, game is over, man. Over. But what happens when you pair the two best defensive chess players in the world, the two biggest, like, problems in chess? Like, you cannot beat these guys. It is just not possible. They start creating counterplay, even in completely unfathomable situations. Queen a6. Hikaru is playing all the best moves. a5. Not necessarily the best, but he's still completely winning because Magnus has a minute. A minute. Rook d1, d3. You trade the bishops. You take another pawn. Take, take. It's over. It's +5. I mean, you literally just do this. Magnus plays rook e8. Hikaru plays g3. Not a bad move, but now d2 is a bit annoying because of rook e1. So the best move here is king f1. And the game is over after king f1. Because if black plays knight d3, still trying to set this up, you take. Rook here, king g2. Like, even if knight f4 check, takes, and the king moves. This is a winning endgame because you have two, these pawns, like, the pawn cannot be stopped. It just can't be stopped. Like, king h3, rook d1, a6, okay, like, you can say rook d4, b4. Rook here, b5. This is lost completely. It's hopeless. So Hikaru here has to play either king f1 or queen b4, stopping rook e1. He plays queen b4, and now this! And he is almost lost because the queen cannot defend e1 anymore. It cannot take or go here because of knight e2. This is unbelievable. The only move in the position is to sack the queen. This is absurd. And Magnus is still on the verge of losing. These pawns are very powerful. Hikaru pushes the pawns, brings his king. Magnus creates a blockade. It's just a draw. So Hikaru, with 30 seconds on the clock, begins doing stuff over here. They each have a second of bonus time. Pawn to h5. Rook g8, best move. Best move. Played with 2 seconds on the clock by Magnus. Rook c2 pinning. King to b5. Now he's going to start taking these pawns. Pawn takes g6. Rook g6. King h5. And in this position, Magnus Carlsen lost on time. He lost on time. He couldn't decide. Do I take? Do I go here? Not there. Like, do I go in the 6th rank? Do I check? Do I take? Do I play rook d6? And he loses on time. And he was in disbelief because, I mean, like 7 moves ago, he had probably the worst position he's had in like a few years. Just a comprehensive start to finish domination from Hikaru. Blows it with queen b4, rook d4, insane tactic. And Hikaru wins. Wild. Completely wild game. I mean, this Armageddon is really, really content. These are your standings after 7 rounds. Anna Muzychuk, Wenjun at the top. Vaishali has been at 10 rounds, 10 points for the last 2 rounds. She had 10 points already, twice. Crazy. And these are your standings amongst the gentlemen. Magnus and Hikaru separated by half a point. Pragg getting some points today, but falling behind. It's Hikaru and Magnus, and anybody that wants to win a classical game and catch them, my friends, I'm tired. It's 12:30. I'm going to lay in bed. I'm a bit jet lagged, so I don't know when I'm going to be tired. But once again, Spain trip. Hope the setup is good. Patreon, uploading GM lessons, uploading training footage, uploading vlogs now as well. Do check it out. And thank you all so much for the continued support there, in the comment section, etc. Unretirement tournament begins June 10th. I'm going to figure out if I can stream it live. If I can't stream it live, I will be making recaps and other people will probably be streaming them live. But I've got this sick camera. So see you all tomorrow. Get out of here.